In the world of entertainment, Hollywood is often shown as a place of beauty, fame, and endless opportunity. Bright lights, red carpets, and award shows make it look like a dream come true. But behind this glamorous image, there are many stories that are rarely told. Some stories are quiet, painful, and deeply human. This video focuses on the journeys of Black trans actresses who have worked in film and television while facing challenges that many people never see. These women are not only performers, they are individuals who have lived through rejection, misunderstanding, and struggle while still choosing to live honestly as themselves. Their journeys are about identity, survival, and strength. Growing up as a Black trans woman often means facing multiple layers of difficulty at the same time. There can be pressure from family, society, religion, and culture, all pushing a person to be someone they are not. Many of these actresses have spoken in interviews about realizing their gender identity at a very young age. Even before they had words to explain how they felt, they knew something about them was different. Instead of being supported, many were told that their feelings were wrong, shameful, or sinful. This early rejection often left deep emotional scars that stayed with them into adulthood. School environments were not always safe either. Bullying, isolation, and fear became part of daily life. Some faced verbal abuse, while others experienced physical harm or constant humiliation. These experiences made childhood and teenage years extremely painful. Home, which should be a place of comfort, often became another space of conflict. Some families struggled to understand or accept their child's identity, especially in religious or conservative households. This lack of acceptance caused many of these women to feel alone even while surrounded by relatives. As they grew older, many of them reached a point where they had to make a difficult decision: hide who they were or leave everything familiar behind. For some, this meant leaving home at a very young age, sometimes with no money, no plan, and nowhere safe to go. Moving to larger cities like New York or Los Angeles became a way to search for freedom and acceptance. These cities offered more visibility and community, but they were also harsh and unforgiving. Finding housing, work, and healthcare was not easy, especially for trans women of color. Many struggled just to survive day by day. Medical transition, for those who chose it, was another major challenge. Access to proper healthcare was limited, expensive, or completely unavailable. Some relied on unsafe sources because they had no other choice. This caused serious health risks and fear about their own bodies. Emotionally, the journey was just as difficult. Living in a society that constantly questions your existence can slowly break down confidence and self-worth. Despite these hardships, many of these women never gave up on their dreams. Acting, modeling, singing, or performing became not just careers, but ways to express their true selves. Entering the entertainment industry, however, did not make things easier. Trans actresses were often rejected before auditions even began. Casting directors and producers frequently saw them as too different or not marketable. Roles were limited, stereotyped, or completely unavailable. Some were told to hide their identity to succeed, while others were reduced only to their gender history instead of their talent. This created constant pressure to choose between honesty and opportunity. Still, through patience and determination, some of these women began to break through. When shows and films finally started to include trans characters played by trans actresses, it marked an important shift. These roles were more than just jobs, they were moments of visibility and validation. Seeing Black trans women on screen allowed audiences to connect with their humanity, not just labels. For the actresses themselves, it was proof that their voices mattered. Even as success slowly arrived, the past did not disappear. Many continued to deal with emotional pain, anxiety, and memories of rejection. Public attention brought both support and criticism. While some fans celebrated them, others responded with hate or misunderstanding. Learning to live under public scrutiny required strength and emotional balance. Through interviews, activism, and community work, many of these actresses chose to use their platform to speak about acceptance, mental health, and the importance of being true to oneself. Their stories remind us that success is not just about fame or money. Sometimes, success means surviving, healing, and helping others feel less alone. These women did not just change their own lives, they helped open doors for future generations. As time passed, the presence of black trans actresses in film and television slowly began to grow. Each new role carried great responsibility, whether they wanted it or not. For many of these women, simply existing in public spaces was seen as a statement. Audiences, critics, and media often expected them to represent an entire community, which created heavy pressure. Still, they continued to show up, perform, and tell stories that had long been ignored. Their work helped shift how trans women were portrayed on screen. Instead of being shown only through stereotypes or tragedy, they began to appear as complex human beings with emotions, dreams, flaws, and strengths. This change did not happen overnight. It came after years of rejection, patience, and courage. Many of these actresses have spoken openly about mental health struggles that followed them throughout their journey. Depression, anxiety, and feelings of worthlessness were common themes. Some described moments when the weight of discrimination felt unbearable. Being rejected by family, society, and employers can make a person feel invisible. For black trans women, these feelings were often intensified by racism and sexism as well. Finding professional mental health support was not always easy, especially when financial resources were limited. Support often came instead from chosen family, close friends, or community groups. Ballroom culture, LGBTQ+ organizations, and creative spaces became places of healing and belonging. These communities offered acceptance when the outside world refused to. They also helped many develop confidence and pride in who they were. Education and self-reflection played a major role in personal growth. Over time, many learned to separate society's opinions from their own self-worth. This inner work was not simple or quick, but it was life-changing. Career progress brought new opportunities and challenges. Being cast in well-known shows or films increased visibility but also invited criticism. Some audiences questioned why trans women should play certain roles, while others praised the authenticity they brought to the screen. These conversations were sometimes painful, but they also pushed the industry to reflect on inclusion and representation. Awards, nominations, and positive reviews helped validate the talent of these actresses. Recognition showed that their success was not based on identity alone, but on skill, dedication, and hard work. Behind the scenes, many continued to advocate for better working conditions and respectful treatment. They spoke about the importance of hiring trans writers, directors, and crew members to tell stories accurately. This advocacy helped create safer and more respectful environments within the industry. Outside of acting, many of these women expanded their influence through public speaking, writing, and activism. They used their voices to talk about issues like violence against trans women, lack of healthcare access, and employment discrimination. Sharing personal stories was not always easy, but it helped humanize topics that are often misunderstood. By speaking openly, they encouraged empathy rather than fear. They reminded people that trans lives are not political debates, but real human experiences. As role models, these actresses also understood the impact they had on young people watching them. For many black trans youth, seeing someone like themselves succeed on screen was life-changing. Representation provided hope where there had once been none. It showed that a future was possible, even in a world that often felt hostile. This visibility saved lives in quiet, unseen ways. Still, the journey was never perfect. Progress often came with setbacks. Media narratives sometimes focused too much on pain instead of achievement. Interviews could feel invasive, asking personal questions that would never be asked of others. Learning to set boundaries became essential for emotional health. Despite these challenges, many of these actresses continued to choose honesty and openness on their own terms. They learned that strength does not always mean being loud or fearless. Sometimes, strength means resting, healing, and choosing peace. Their stories are not only about struggle, but also about joy, friendship, creativity, and love. By living openly, they created space for others to do the same. The impact of their presence in entertainment goes beyond screens and stages. It changes conversations in homes, schools, and communities. Slowly, perceptions begin to shift. Understanding replaces fear. Compassion replaces judgment. These women helped make that change possible by simply refusing to disappear. Looking at the bigger picture, the journeys of Black trans actresses reflect a larger story about society and progress. Change often begins with visibility, but it does not end there. True change requires listening, learning, and respecting people's lived experiences. These actresses did not ask to be pioneers, yet their courage placed them in that role. They walked paths that were not prepared for them and faced resistance at every step. Still, they moved forward, not because it was easy, but because living truthfully mattered more than comfort. Their lives remind us that identity is deeply personal and should never be treated as entertainment or shock value. Behind every headline or role is a human being with feelings, history, and dreams. When society reduces people to labels, it forgets their humanity. These stories challenge us to see people fully, beyond assumptions. The success of Black trans actresses also highlights the importance of opportunity. Talent exists everywhere, but access does not. When doors remain closed due to prejudice, entire generations lose voices that could inspire, educate, and heal. Inclusion is not about giving special treatment, it is about removing unfair barriers. The entertainment industry still has a long way to go, but progress has been made. Each role played by a trans actress opens space for more stories to be told. Each interview spoken with honesty helps break myths and fears. Each moment of visibility sends a message that trans lives matter. These actresses also teach us about resilience in its truest form. Resilience is not about never feeling pain. It is about continuing to live even when pain exists. It is about choosing hope after disappointment and self-love after rejection. Many of these women learned to redefine success on their own terms. Success became not just awards or fame, but peace, authenticity, and the ability to help others feel seen. Their journeys also show the importance of community. No one survives alone. Support systems, whether found in friends, chosen family, or creative spaces, play a vital role in healing. These connections provide safety and understanding when the world feels overwhelming. They remind individuals that they are not alone in their experiences. As viewers and listeners, we also have a role to play. Listening with empathy, speaking with respect, and challenging harmful stereotypes can create safer spaces for everyone. Learning about different experiences does not require full understanding, only openness. Respect does not require agreement, only humanity. These stories are invitations to grow, not arguments to win. In the end, the journeys of Black trans actresses are stories of courage, not tragedy. While pain is part of their history, it does not define them. They are artists, leaders, and survivors who have shaped culture through their presence. Their lives remind us that authenticity is powerful and that living truthfully can change the world in quiet but meaningful ways. As society continues to evolve, their contributions will remain important. They have already left a lasting mark, not just on entertainment, but on hearts and minds. By honoring their stories with respect and care, we move closer to a world where everyone has the freedom to be themselves without fear. That is the true message of these journeys, and it is one worth remembering. Hollywood is often seen as a land of dreams, fame, and success, but behind the bright lights and red carpets, many stories remain hidden. Some of the most powerful of these stories belong to Black trans women who faced rejection, violence, poverty, and fear long before they ever found recognition. Their journeys are not just about transition, but about survival in a world that was often unwilling to accept them. Growing up, many of these women realized their gender identity at a very young age. Instead of being met with love and understanding, they often faced harsh words, punishment, and isolation. Family, which should have been a place of safety, sometimes became the first source of pain. Being told that they were wrong, sinful, or broken left deep emotional scars. Some were forced to leave home as teenagers, suddenly facing homelessness with no support. Living on the streets or moving between shelters exposed them to constant danger, hunger, and fear. Despite this, many still held onto their dreams of self-expression through art, fashion, acting, and performance. For them, creativity became a way to survive emotionally, even when life felt unbearable. As these women tried to live authentically, society often responded with cruelty. Schools became hostile environments where bullying, mocking, and physical attacks were common. Teachers and staff frequently refused to respect their identities, adding to their pain. Medical care, something many people take for granted, was often out of reach. Without insurance or money, some turned to unsafe sources for hormones, risking serious health problems. Many later spoke about severe pain, hospital stays, and fear for their lives because they had no safe alternatives. These experiences were not choices made lightly, but desperate actions taken in a system that failed to protect them. Alongside physical struggles, mental health challenges grew. Depression, anxiety, and feelings of worthlessness became constant companions. Some reached moments where they felt life was no longer worth living. Yet, even in those darkest times, something inside them refused to disappear completely. Entering the entertainment industry did not immediately bring relief. Instead, prejudice followed them into auditions, modeling agencies, and casting rooms. Talented and hardworking, they were often rejected not because of skill, but because of identity. They were told audiences were not ready, or that their presence would be controversial. Some lost roles or contracts once their identity became known. These moments were deeply painful, reinforcing the message that they did not belong. Still, they continued. Many worked multiple jobs, performing at night, modeling during the day, and taking small roles wherever possible. Ballroom culture, underground art spaces, and community theaters became places of belonging. In these spaces, they found chosen families who celebrated them, supported them, and gave them the strength to continue. These communities were not perfect, but they offered something rare: acceptance. Slowly, through persistence and courage, doors began to open. Shows like Pose changed television history by centering Black trans women not as side characters, but as full, complex human beings. For actresses like MJ Rodriguez and India Moore, these roles were more than career opportunities. They were moments of visibility that challenged long-standing stereotypes. Their performances showed audiences around the world that trans women could lead stories with depth, beauty, and power. Recognition followed. Awards, nominations, and public praise proved that talent could no longer be ignored. But even as success arrived, it did not erase the past. The trauma of rejection, violence, and fear remained part of their lives. Many spoke openly about therapy, healing, and learning to love themselves after years of being told they were unworthy. Beyond acting, figures like Janet Mock used writing, producing, and advocacy to change the industry from within. By telling honest stories and creating opportunities for others, she helped shift cultural conversations. Her work showed that representation behind the camera mattered just as much as representation on screen. Activists like CECE MacDonald reminded the world that justice systems often fail marginalized people. Her story highlighted how trans women, especially Black trans women, often punished rather than protected. Through activism and storytelling, she transformed personal pain into collective action. Models like Amaya Scott broke barriers in fashion, proving that beauty does not follow one narrow standard. Despite facing rejection and harsh criticism, she claimed space in an industry that once refused to see her. Each of these women showed that resilience is not about never breaking, but about continuing even after breaking many times. The personal lives of these women were shaped by both love and loss. Romantic relationships, which many hoped would bring comfort, often came with new challenges. Some partners struggled with societal pressure, family rejection, or fear of public judgment. In several cases, relationships ended not because love disappeared, but because the world made it too difficult to stay together. These experiences reinforced feelings of loneliness and fear of abandonment. Trust became hard when past betrayals still hurt. Yet, these women continued to hope for connection, understanding that love, like identity, should not require hiding. Friendships within the LGBTQ+ community became lifelines. Shared experiences created bonds that felt stronger than blood. These chosen families celebrated milestones, supported one another during illness, and mourned losses together. They reminded each other that survival itself was an act of courage. Mental health remained an ongoing struggle. Years of rejection and violence left many dealing with trauma responses, including anxiety, panic, and depression. Some openly discuss seeking therapy, learning coping tools, and rebuilding self-worth. Speaking publicly about mental health was not easy, but it helped reduce stigma and encouraged others to seek help. These conversations were especially important for young trans people who saw themselves reflected in these stories for the first time. Representation saved lives, not through perfection, but through honesty. Seeing successful women speak about fear and healing made it clear that strength and vulnerability can exist together. As their visibility grew, so did their responsibility. Many became role models, whether they wanted to or not. They understood that their presence on screen or on runways meant something far bigger than individual success. It meant hope for people who felt invisible. This awareness shaped their choices. They used interviews, social media, and public platforms to speak about issues like healthcare access, violence against trans women, and the importance of community support. They challenged harmful narratives and corrected misinformation. This advocacy was not always welcomed. Backlash, online harassment, and hate comments followed. Yet, they continued, knowing that silence would not protect future generations. Cultural impact cannot be measured only by awards or fame. The true impact of these women lies in how they changed conversations. They forced industries to confront bias and question outdated standards. Casting directors began to rethink who could be a leading actor. Fashion houses reconsidered beauty norms. Writers and producers realized that authentic stories resonated deeply with audiences. Young people watching at home saw possibilities they had never imagined before. They learned that being different did not mean being unworthy. For many viewers, these stories offered language to understand their own feelings and courage to live honestly. Still, progress does not mean the struggle is over. Violence against Black trans women remains a serious issue. Access to safe healthcare is still unequal. Representation, while improved, is not guaranteed. These women often remind audiences that their success does not mean the system is fixed. It simply proves that change is possible. They emphasize the importance of supporting organizations, policies, and communities that protect marginalized lives. They ask for empathy, not pity, and respect, not fascination. Their message is clear: everyone deserves safety, dignity, and the freedom to exist without fear. What makes these stories powerful is not only the hardship, but the humanity within them. These women are not symbols or lessons, they are people with dreams, flaws, humor, and strength. They laugh, love, fail, and grow like anyone else. Reducing their lives to pain alone would be another form of erasure. Instead, their journeys should be seen as full narratives, filled with struggle and joy, loss and achievement. By listening carefully and respectfully, audiences can better understand the complexity of identity and the importance of compassion. In reflecting on these journeys, it becomes clear that resilience is not something people are born with, but something they build through experience. Each challenge these women faced forced them to learn new ways to survive. Sometimes resilience looked like walking away from unsafe spaces. Other times, it looked like staying and fighting for change. It looked like choosing life in moments when despair felt overwhelming. It looked like continuing to audition after countless rejections. These choices, repeated over years, shaped their paths. Their success did not come from ignoring pain, but from learning how to live alongside it without letting it define them completely. Education played an important role as well. Through interviews, books, documentaries, and shows, audiences learned about gender identity in human terms rather than abstract debates. Understanding grew not because people were told what to think, but because they were invited into real lives. Stories have a unique power to create empathy. When viewers saw these women laugh, cry, and dream, it became harder to deny their humanity. This shift in perception is one of the most meaningful outcomes of representation. It changes hearts slowly, but deeply. For younger generations, these women represent possibility. Seeing someone who shares your identity succeed can change the direction of a life. It can turn fear into hope. Many young trans people have spoken about finding strength through these stories, realizing they were not alone. Parents, too, have shared that representation helped them understand their children better. These ripple effects show that visibility matters far beyond entertainment. It influences families, schools, and communities. At the same time, it is important to recognize that not every trans person's journey will look the same. Success in Hollywood is not the goal for everyone, nor should it be the measure of worth. These stories should inspire support for all trans lives, including those far from fame. Real progress means safer streets, accessible healthcare, supportive families, and respectful workplaces. The spotlight can open doors, but lasting change requires collective effort. These women often emphasize this point, reminding audiences that their success should not distract from ongoing struggles faced by many others. As this documentary comes to a close, it is worth asking what responsibility viewers carry after hearing these stories. Awareness is the first step, but action matters too. This can mean speaking up against discrimination, supporting inclusive policies, or simply listening without judgment. It can mean challenging harmful jokes or assumptions. Small actions, when repeated, can shift culture. Respect begins with recognizing someone's right to define themselves. These Black trans women have shown extraordinary courage, but courage should not be a requirement for basic dignity. Their stories are not meant to glorify suffering, but to highlight strength, creativity, and the human desire to live truthfully. They remind us that authenticity is not a trend, but a necessity. Living honestly may come at a cost, but living without truth comes at a greater one. In the end, their journeys are about more than identity. They are about freedom. Freedom to love openly. Freedom to pursue dreams. Freedom to exist without fear. By sharing these stories, we honor not just individual achievements, but a collective struggle for justice and understanding. If these narratives moved you, let them inspire empathy rather than judgment. Let them encourage learning rather than fear. And most importantly, let them remind us that everyone's life has value, no matter how different it may seem from our own. Hollywood often celebrates fame, beauty, and talent, but behind the bright lights, many stories go untold. Some of the most powerful stories are those of Black trans women who faced rejection, violence, and hardship long before achieving recognition. Their journeys are not just about gender transition, they are about survival in a society that was often unwilling to accept them. Many realized their gender identity at a young age, only to be met with harsh words, punishment, and isolation from their own families. Some were forced to leave home as teenagers, facing homelessness, hunger, and danger. Despite these challenges, creativity became a source of hope. Acting, modeling, and performance gave them ways to express themselves and survive emotionally, even when life felt unbearable. As they tried to live authentically, society often responded with cruelty. Schools were hostile, with bullying, insults, and even physical attacks. Medical care was often out of reach, leaving some to seek unsafe alternatives for hormone therapy. The physical and emotional challenges were immense. Many struggled with depression, anxiety, and feelings of worthlessness. Some reached moments where life felt impossible. Yet even in their darkest times, they found strength within themselves to continue. They discovered communities, like the ballroom scene or supportive friends, that offered encouragement and acceptance when family and society failed them. These chosen families were lifelines, providing safety, belonging, and the motivation to keep pursuing their dreams. Entering the entertainment industry brought new challenges. Many talented women were rejected for roles or modeling contracts simply because of their identity. The world told them they were not ready, or too controversial, even when their skill and dedication were undeniable. Despite repeated rejection, they persisted. Slowly, doors opened. Shows like Pose placed Black trans women at the center, allowing them to show their talent and humanity. Recognition through awards, nominations, and praise proved that authenticity and skill could not be ignored. Beyond acting, figures like Janet Mock used writing and producing to create opportunities for others and challenge industry norms. Activists like C.E. MacDonald highlighted injustice in legal systems, while models like Amaya Scott broke barriers in fashion. Each woman transformed personal hardship into inspiration, showing that resilience is built through experience and courage. Their personal lives were also full of challenges. Romantic relationships, friendships, and family connections were often complicated by societal pressure and prejudice. Trust was hard to build after repeated betrayals, but chosen families and community bonds provided support. Mental health was a continuous struggle. Therapy, self-reflection, and open conversations helped them cope with trauma and grow stronger. By sharing their stories publicly, they helped others feel less alone, offering hope to young trans people who saw themselves reflected for the first time. Representation matters. Seeing someone like oneself succeed can change the direction of a life and teach families how to understand and support their children. These women's influence extends beyond fame. They changed cultural conversations about identity, beauty, and inclusion. Casting directors, fashion houses, and writers began to reconsider biases and create space for authentic stories. Success for these women does not mean the fight is over. Violence, healthcare inequality, and discrimination remain serious issues for Black trans women. Their stories remind audiences that courage and perseverance are vital, but basic dignity and respect should not require bravery. They are rights everyone deserves. In the end, their journeys are about more than entertainment. They are about freedom, the freedom to love, to pursue dreams, and to exist without fear. Sharing these stories honors not only their achievements but also the collective struggle for justice, understanding, and acceptance. Their lives teach us that authenticity is powerful, resilience is essential, and every person deserves to live openly and proudly.